Welcome to the Bree Pod. I'm here with me, Bree. Today's episode is Unfiltered, and I'm sharing my story with you. When I first said that I was going to share my story, I was wicked nervous about it because it's such a vulnerable thing to do. But at the same time, I've asked so many people to come in to share their story, to give their vulnerability, to be raw. How could I tell them to do that but not do it myself? And then I had moments where I was like, who's going to even want to hear what I have to say? Which is funny because I made a whole brie pod named after myself. So I'm very conflicting with my thoughts and emotions on this. But I think it's important that I share bits and pieces of myself. So I think from here on out, maybe once a month or once every other month, I will be sharing a piece of my story because there's a lot to share. But to start it all out, I think that I gave a pretty decent beginning. I think like a almost foreshadowing in Helen back of how I met Andrew. And at that time in life, I was in a very crazy place. I just was done with college at that point. I moved back to Malone. I was just trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I ended two relationships at that point, and I was getting to know Jeremy at that time. And it wasn't in a like in the first, I guess I should say, the first time that I was hanging out with Jeremy, there wasn't like we weren't trying to get to know each other in a boyfriend girlfriend way. It was a friendship, but turned into now we're husband and wife. So clearly it was more than what we thought it was at the time, or what it would lead up to. But um, at that time, I was very lost and not in my, I wasn't the happiest that I had felt. My ex was stalking me, and I was just trying to just enjoy myself at a bar with my friends, have a good hangout. I don't really drink, but I still like to dance. I still like to hang out with people. So I was just trying to enjoy, this good time. And I turn around and my ex is like basically breathing onto my hair, and he's that close. And I'm like, what do I do? I was scared. Like my heart was racing. Because he did scare me back then. Um, we were together for 2 years, and they were definitely a roller coaster of 2 years. Um, Luckily, it did not get physical. At least it got to a point where it's very close to being physical. But the physical, I think the last straw of where he could have been physical is when it was like, okay, we're done. We have to end this now. Um, but the thing is, it was very mentally abusive. And what is hard about mental abuse is that you cannot prove that you're going through that. And you don't have like, you can't share the scars that are occurring, because it's something that's being verbally told to you, but it's not like you can take someone's words and show and be like, this is what they've said to me, and this is what hurts me. And I just want to say with that though, I'm not saying that mental or physical is more on, a scale of better than the other or anything, or I'm just saying that mental abuse is hard to prove. And with this, um, when you are on that side of it, you think that you're crazy. And honestly, your partner in a mental abusive relationship, your partner makes you think that you're crazy. And when you're told that so many times, you start to believe it. Um, but at the time that we were at the bar, I had gotten out of this relationship. Now there's a rocky way on how that happened, which I'll dive into, but, it's it was definitely yeah, let's just get into it. So, um, when I met my ex, I have to say that I was no angel. I can't say I'm not gonna put everything on him and say it's only him because it wasn't. Um, he brought out a part of me that I am embarrassed of. I do not ever want to see that person again in myself because he brought out a nasty person. Um, he would say things that would just push me over the edge, and I would throw whatever object was close to me and hit the wall that was close to him. I never hit him with the objects, but that doesn't make it any more right, you know? But what led to this is that when we first started our relationship, it really wasn't on the best start anyway. You know, like he had a girlfriend at the time. I didn't start dating until I was like 19 years old, so I'm in college at this point. And or yeah, no, 19. Um, sorry. And I ended up still pursuing him because I guess I just thought, "Oh, this is a challenge. I should go take this challenge." Which, ladies, no, that's not appropriate to anybody. Um, Not healthy for yourself either, because it shows, like how much worth you have for yourself, you know. And I'm not trying to look down on anybody. It's just like it was not something that I'm proud of at all. But, that should have been the red flag, right? Like, hey, he's willing to be with you when he has a girlfriend, uh, and you think he's like this cool guy. No, probably not. But anyway, I ended up telling him that I couldn't pursue him unless we were gonna be together. It's either we're together or they're together, not both. So he ended up ending things with his girlfriend and choosing me. And back then, I thought that was the best thing in the world because I'm so amazing he chose me. But when I look back at it, even during the time, I had conflicting feelings where I was just like, why do I think that that's okay? Why did I think that that was something to feel? But I did. And then I remember feeling very guilty about it. Now, at the time, I did not have a boyfriend, but it didn't matter if I had one or not. It's the fact that I will hurt somebody else, in the process. Even if I wasn't with someone, I still wasn't, I was accompanying him and he was hurting someone else. So I ended up messaging his ex girlfriend and apologizing and saying, "I'm so sorry that I did that to you. It's out of my character." Because honestly, it was out of my character. I had never dated anybody at this point. I didn't kiss anybody at this point. I didn't know much about relationships or love or anything. And for my first relationship, I was really starting off real great, and she was super kind about it, which I expected worse than that. And honestly, I felt that I deserved worse than that because what I did was wrong, or I felt was wrong. And she was nice about it and just said, like, basically, I saved her from, him. So I guess good on me there. But I didn't know at the time that he wasn't the nicest to her either. I learned that later. And I'm not talking about physical abuse. It was a lot of emotional abuse. And as time went on, the emotional abuse would get worse. But of course, in the beginning, you're in a honeymoon stage. So everything's perfect, everything's amazing, everything's good. But then you start to learn about that person. And um, my ex and I decided to move in together. And since we were moving in together, we were about like 15 minutes from college because at the time we were both still going there. We both worked at the same place, but in different departments. And so we didn't really need too much transportation. Like one car was enough for both. and we would just drive each other to work and to school. And at the time, I had a part-time job. I had my full-time college courses, and I was also in I don't know why I can't think of the word right now. An internship, yeah. So I was in an internship. So I had a lot of stuff going on at that time, and then also dating Max. Um, and so living together is probably what showed the true colors of both of our personalities together. Because prior to that, things were semi blissful. There were obviously things that I was like, "Ugh, I don't know if I like this," but they weren't enough to, I guess, make me really think about it until we lived together. And then when we started living together, he would be he got to a point where he kind of isolated me, but I didn't realize it because I was so busy and I was constantly doing and doing and doing and doing that for a second when I came out of this, I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't seen my family in like forever. So I talked to him about it. I said, we see your family like every weekend, and sometimes it was like most school nights, work nights. But I'd really like to see my own family. And he would kind of turn it around and be like, "What do you mean? We've seen your family more than we've seen mine," which was clearly not true because my family technically lived like 45 minutes to an hour away from school, and his family was a bit closer, like about 20 to 30 minutes. Um, so we were always at his family's house. But he just was like, "Oh no, you've seen your family enough." I'm like, "No, I haven't. I was used to seeing my family every day because in the beginning of college, before I hit my senior year, I was traveling back and forth to my parents' home into college every day. So it went from every day to like here and there. And as time went on, he started to lie and make up things. Like one time, I remember he came back home from work and something happened with the car. I don't know if like somebody hit it or if like he hit something, but he came back home and he blamed me for hitting his car. Now, at that time of the day, I had not used his car yet. So there was no way I hit anything. But he spent most of that night basically saying that I was the one that hit this car and that I needed to pay for it. And I was like, I felt kind of like I was losing my mind because I'm starting to think, well, maybe I did do something, even though I did not drive that car that day. But he was so convincing with how he would talk about things that I would start to believe the things that he would say. I'd be like, maybe I did. I mean, I don't even know anymore. I'd have moments where I'd be like, maybe I did like hit that car, but I I think I'm thankful for this moment because he did end up later admitting that I didn't hit anything. But he had this whole story and he was upset with me and he'd get angry with me and tell me that I'm this bad person and I need to pay for these things, but I didn't do it. Now, as time went on, I my brother is my twin. So I had a very close relationship with my brother, and I would talk about him all the time. And my ex thought it was great to basically tell me, how my brother and I would amount to nothing. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything. I'll never find a man like him. And, I was with him for 2 years. So as time went on, like I said, you start to believe things that people say about you. Like, oh, you're not good enough. You're not special. You're not these things. And um, so I'm trying to do school. I'm trying to do this relationship. I'm trying to do this internship. And I started getting upset more, having anxiety attack, panic attacks. And at the time, I really didn't know that's what they were because I just had so much chaos going on that it just felt overwhelming. And he would say, "You're crying all the time. Like there's something wrong with you. Maybe you have bipolar depression. Maybe you have all these things." Like he would put all of these things on me and say it was my fault, but not take into account that I was under a lot of stress. And I remember one time I went to visit his family with him, and his mom was like, "Hey, I set up my son has been telling me that you have been crying a lot. You're not sleeping, you're not eating, like all these things. I've set up a counselor for you." And I felt two emotions there. One, pissed because someone took initiative without asking me. And the second emotion of like, okay, now someone else thinks I'm crazy. Now someone else thinks that something's wrong with me. So clearly, there's something wrong with me. I mean, why am I crying all the time? And honestly, he was my first relationship, so it's not like I had anything that I could base it on or could look at it and be like, this is appropriate, this is not appropriate. And I didn't want to admit it to my parents because I knew they'd be like wanting to get involved and say, get out, get out. And they would have been right. But at that time, I don't know. I put up limiting beliefs on myself that made me stay, and I stayed too long. Um, and I remember as I wouldn't tell my friends, like I had a couple of best friends in college and a couple best friends at home that would ask me, "How you doing? How's everything going?" And I would lie and just be like, "Yeah, everything's great. Everything's fine." But then I'd go home and I'd be in like a huge fight on why I didn't do the dishes. And he would scream at me and basically say, that I'm lazy, I'm useless, I'm not going anywhere. And I'd be frustrated and I'd be like, I'm not lazy, I'm trying to work, I'm trying to do all these things. And it would bring out this anger in me. And like I said, I'm not proud of any of the actions that I took. I was not nice back. And I would throw shit at the wall and I'd be like screaming at the top of my lungs. I have no idea how we got away with these um back and forth yelling matches because we had neighbors. Like the way that our apartment was set up was kind of like you have paper thin walls between the other room, so your neighbor can hear everything. But 2 in the morning we're freaking out and somehow the cops are not being called, which I'm thankful for in one aspect. But in the other aspect, I almost wonder, which we really shouldn't have, like the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but it almost makes you wonder, would have that have helped? And maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't have helped. Um, but I remember that I would go back to school the next day. I'd go to work and I'd pretend like nothing happened, and I wouldn't tell anybody. Um, and I found that because of this, from the upset, the chaos, the constant fighting, that I stopped kind of eating, and I don't wanna say full blown, I stopped eating meals. It's just that I kind of lessened my portions of eating food because I was stressed, and I just didn't think about food as much as I should have. So, it did start to show that I was getting skinnier, um, and it started to become apparent that something was wrong, but I still didn't, you know, I guess, accept that anything was wrong with it. And there was times that I would just, like, cry myself to sleep, cry myself in the shower, I'd be it was it was not the it wasn't the greatest time, but I'm like I said, I wasn't the best person either. It was not nice. Um, and I started to believe these things, and I remember what really gave me the feeling that I needed to leave was back when my friend and I were actually going to go to do Zumba together. And luckily, out of all the friendships and all the isolation that had occurred during the course of our relationship, I was not isolated from this one friend. And had I been isolated from this one friend, I have no idea what would have played out. But by having this friend, she at least was able to get me like I'd have happy because I can't say that college was fully horrible and this relationship took up everything because what was nice is that from those times away from him and those times with my friend, I had time to be myself and I didn't have to worry about whatever it was he was pissed off about that day. But I remember that it started to build up. I mean, after a while, when you are constantly told these nasty things, you start to believe them, it starts to build up, and eventually you explode in some manner or you know, unleash it. And I remember I was supposed to be doing Zumba with my friend, but someone, which I'm not going to mention because it's out of respect to them, but someone called me and all she said was, "How are you doing?" And she's the only person at that time that I was telling the truth to. Um, and I said, I just started bawling. I'm like, I don't, I don't know. I feel lost. I feel confused and I feel crazy because that's what he told me I was. So I said, I feel crazy and I do not know what to do with these emotions. Like, and she said, Bree, I love you no matter what you choose to do, but I need you to know that you you have to leave this relationship. It is unhealthy. It's not good for you, and if you continue to do this, it is going to tear you apart. And for once, like in all of the months that all this stuff was going down, for once it felt like someone, even though she wasn't with me, like took me and said, "This is not in your head. You are not crazy." And I have kept that inside me, like I guess those words in my mind because I actually ended up using them later for a friend that was in a situation like mine, but unfortunately with more physical abuse in it. And the first thing I wanted her to know is that when you are in an abusive relationship, mentally, physically, emotionally, however it is, the first thing that they like to do is say you're crazy. But let me tell you something. You are not. You may not like the things about you in the way that you're reacting to things, but you know what I mean? Like that feeling, that emotion didn't come from out of the blue. It's not like you woke up and was like, I'm gonna be a mean person to everybody. It was built up and it kept building and building and building and building and building and you know and I just really think that's important for you to know because that is something I hear with a lot of people in relationships of this type. And your feelings are valid. What you are feeling is true. Um, but as I move forward with this, I didn't leave him though. I decided to stay, but I knew I had to leave. I just didn't know how to do it. And of course, I felt like I needed to be nice about it because I didn't want to end in like a huge war. I just wanted it to end on like, hey, together we do not mix, but we could still be acquaintances. Maybe not friends, but acquaintances. We don't mix. Let's just end it at that. I tried multiple times to break up with him. The first time I said that I want to have I didn't even have the, like, strength to say, "Hey, I wanna break up with you." I was just like, "Hey, maybe we should like, with the way this is going, maybe we should just go on a break." And he was like, "No. No, no, no." we're not having a break. You're not breaking up with me. And as time would go on, he would be like, "You'll never find anybody like me." And of course, I have a sassy, mouthy side, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to find someone like you." Um, but at the same time, I still stayed. I still, I don't know why either. Like, I try to go back and try to rationalize it, but I don't know. I don't know. I just stayed. And I remember that in December, we went home to go to my family's Christmas Eve party, and I was excited because, like I have been saying, I didn't realize this in the midst of it, but I was being isolated from family. I was being isolated from friends. Um, and I was finally at a place where I get to see my family. Like, I hadn't seen them in a while, and I was like, this is exciting. His family has Christmas, my family has Christmas Eve. I'm excited to see them. Well, he comes up with another lie, basically saying that his family's going to be having a Christmas Eve party and that we have to hurry at mine because we need to get back for his. And I called his family and I'm like, hey, because prior when we were making plans, they told me that they just had Christmas and it would be fine. And we'd have Christmas. I could go to Christmas Eve. So I ended up calling his family. They end up confirming that what I heard was true. And so I said to him, I'm like, listen, I talked to your family. They said that Christmas Day is fine for their thing. I really want to stay later at mine because I really want to talk to my family. We went to my grandma's like we normally would do, but then after the fact, my parents asked me if I could wrap gifts for my brother and, let the dog out before we left. Well, because I find out that his family's not having anything on Christmas Day, I asked him, I'm like, hey, let's just stay here a little bit. I'd love to have like a little hangout, kind of like old times with my family, maybe watch a movie, and then we'll go home and get ready for tomorrow and go to your family's thing. I had never seen, I knew that he had his angry moments, but I didn't see it up to this extent. And he lost it. He's like, absolutely not. Used a lot of vulgar terms that I will not use, but basically said, get in the truck, we're leaving. My family has something to do. We're going. Get in the truck now. And I was like, no. I I had so much fun at my grandma's. I want to be with my puppy. I want to see my family. I want to stay. And he said, if you do not get in that truck right now, I will break up with you and we are done. And at that point, we had an apartment together. We were sharing a car, which it was his, but we were sharing the car and we worked at the same place. So to me, I'm like, well, we can't break up. We have all these things together. We have the phone together, which are dumb to me when I say it now and think it out loud. Not the greatest reasons of staying, but I was like, well, that can't happen. But I still said, no, be free. Go on. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to see my family. So he said, fine. He leaves. He's like, we're done. Drives down the road. And, so then I start crying. I'm by myself still because my family's over at my grandma's still. But the dog's with me and I'm like bawling and I'm crying to Finny and I'm like, Finny, how could he do this? Like, I don't understand. And I'm shocked because I had never seen this like anger be so built up and I couldn't understand. I was trying to rationalize someone that was irrational, which is hysterical when you think about it because you can't rationalize someone that's irrational. But in the moment, you're like trying to rationalize that situation. Like, why is he upset? Maybe, maybe he wanted to see his family, all these things. Um, and so he comes back and he's pissed. And he comes out of the truck. He like, knocks really hard on the door, like, oh, we're leaving now. And I'm like, no, we're not leaving. I want to be here. He opens up the door, "Get in the effing truck right now." And this is the point I should have ended it. This is the second time, probably the third time I should have ended it. I didn't. Somehow, I do not know why, I got up, I was crying and bawling, I got in the truck, and I just was like, "What the hell am I doing?" And I remember my father calls me on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, oh, I thought you were going to stay a little bit later, to talk and hang out a bit more, but, you have to go, so it's understandable." And I'm trying not to cry, on the phone because I don't want him to know happened here. Because if my dad would have known what happened, I'm not saying, you know, he wouldn't do nothing. You know what I mean? He he would but lots of shit. Um, but I for some reason at that time I just didn't tell people. I didn't communicate what was going on and I just hid it. And I do this a lot. And when you I feel like when it comes to secrets and things, when you try to hide something, eventually it starts to stir up and something comes out. You know what I mean? So as the months were progressing, that was about December. We ended up having our real quote unquote breakup in March. So there's still some time in between here. Um, and I remember that the more he said the nasty things to me, the more, I mean, of course, I was not, uh, again, innocent. I would say stuff back in retaliation to what he'd say. It just became not so great environment. And at the time, like my friend was unfortunately going through the same thing as me, except it was more on a physical than manner, and we both were going through some crazy stuff, but we weren't telling each other. And we learned this later, you know. Um, but there came a point where I was so fed up with the situation. I had a moment where I told my uncle in a private message on Facebook that I wish, and not like in a cheating manner, but prior to my relationship with my ex, I said, I wish I would have started a relationship with the other guy because this other guy would have never treated me the way that this person did. Um, so this message comes into play because one of the days he comes to pick me up from school, he's just going off again about I'm trash, I'm all these nasty things, I don't do anything, I'm lazy, um, which I was far from all of those things. When I look back now, I was doing a lot of stuff, but in the moment, you're like, I guess so, yeah, all right. And he like pushed me so far to the edge at that point. I was like, you know what? We're done. We're gonna be friends, whatever, because we had to live together. We're gonna be friends. That's that. But this relationship is done. I'm done with you. We'll figure out the car, the phone, the apartment. But for now, we're gonna be roommates, basically. And I remember him. Now, at the time, I had a braid in my hair that I pulled around my hair and I like clipped it with one bobby pin. So it's not like it was full blown in there where a hair could be pulled out, but it was enough to be kind of creepy on how he approached the situation. But he came around the car, he pulled my braid out of my hair, and he said, "That's what friends do." And I was just in a utter shock, and I know that that's not like a huge physical attack, but it was just, "What am I doing? Like, why am I in this relationship? Like, I am seeing all these red flags and I'm staying. Why? Why? I don't understand." And I spent a lot of the time because it's like 15 minutes to 30 depending on traffic to get to school. I spent a lot of the time crying all the way back to college because I'm like, what am I doing? Well, later that night, it's my turn to work at the place that we worked at. He was in a different department than me, so we had to swap the vehicle again. I wasn't talking to him. We just that was a very silent ride to work. After I picked him up, then he dropped me off kind of deal. Well, he's a very smart guy, and I'm not saying that he wasn't smart, but um back in college, there was a password that everybody in the school had, and I met my ex at college. So it started off with the 2 digits of your birthday, the 3 digits of, or not the 3 digits, but the 3 letters of the month, and then the last 4 digits of your social. Well, I was still upset and mad about the whole situation that occurred earlier that day. So I forgot that I left my wallet in the car. Like as I went out to go to work, I accidentally left the wallet in the car. Well, he had my email address and he knew my birthday. All he needed was the 4 digits on my social security card, which at the time I had in my wallet. He luckily, by the grace of luck, I guess, has my wallet, gets my 4 social numbers, and then finds this message. Now, mind you, I'm working, so I don't even know that he found it. I didn't even know he was on my Facebook, but he started, of course, going through my messages. Um, Luckily, though, the only message that he really found that was disrespectful was the one that I sent my uncle. Otherwise, like, it's not like I told many people about my situation. I wasn't proud of it, and it wasn't something I really wanted to talk about. But he picks me up from work, and I remember he came in and he had this like pissed off look, and that it was the look that I saw in December. And I was like, what in the world happened? Like, all I did was go to work. Now he's pissed, and I don't know why. And so he's giving me the stare down, and I'm just like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong? And he starts calling me every name in the book. I'm a whore. I'm all these nasty things. I cheated on him, which I did not do. He said, which maybe that was wrong to say, but you know what? Our relationship was awful. So maybe I should have been more honest. I don't know, but he was livid. He said, you need to move out now. We're done. This is over. I called your father. He's coming out to get you right now. And so we have like a 15-minute, 20-minute drive, like I said, to get back home. I'm nervous because I've this energy that he has, this anger that's coming at me is scary as hell. I don't even know what's going to happen. So I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to go into planner mode. Okay, I got to go here, do this, do this, 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 this. Well, I'm noticing because I know my dad very well, I know my mom very well, and if he actually called my family members would have called me. Number one, instantly would have called me. Number two, my dad would have been there. Like after work, he would have been there, not the ex. So I knew full well he was lying. So I quickly called my dad because at this point, I don't know what kind of situation this is going to be turned into. And honestly, at home, there were uh, people that had been in hostage situations from their significant others. So I didn't know if that was the situation I was in. So I instantly called up my dad. I told him where I was, which both my family, my mom and dad taught me in life is, to tell like where you're at, your surroundings, what vehicle you're in, where are you headed, like all these things. I give him the down low, and obviously I'm yelling and like this guy here, more profanity, of course, is he went through my stuff. He stole my social security card. I mean, he now mind you, he gave it back, but he used it to like go into my personal property and look for whatever he was looking for. And so I was livid and I knew that he never called my dad. So from the point, like there's this little stretch of a drive that I do not remember what happened because the situation was so chaotic, it just was a blur. The next part that I do remember is that I'm calling my friend who lives down the road, and I'm like, "Girl, you gotta get here right now. Shit is hitting the fan. It's a midnight move out. We gotta go." But bawling during this time. My dad's on his way, and we gotta get this stuff going now. Then I realized, oh shoot, I just left my wallet again in the car. So I'm like, I don't even want to deal with him right now. I don't want to go out and have to get my wallet again. So I run to go get it, but he beats me to it, throws the wallet in the house, and then, basically it's like, get the hell out and leaves because he doesn't want to see my daddy. My dad's 6'8", did not want to deal with him, which understandable. So my friend shows up, and I swear I do not know how factual this is because, like I said, this part is chaos. But I swear that my friend and my father showed up at the same time, or at least very close to each other, which that means that my dad was speeding up, which I'm not surprised because it was like midnight, and I'm calling him like crying, "Yeah, get here now!" Scary situation. My friend, my dad, myself, we all move everything out and we leave. Now, we did have to pick up some stuff the next day, um, but we'll have to move past that because there's nothing exciting there. But anyway, so fast forward to I still have to go to school, I still have to go to work, and I still have an internship. So what are we gonna do? Um, well, my friend was gracious enough to let me stay with her. My parents had a setup where they'd pick me up on the weekends. I could go to work, then drive home, drive back. But unfortunately, um, during this time, my ex decided that he would make fake Facebook accounts because I blocked his number, I changed my phone number, I deleted my Facebook. Well, not yet. Not yet. I didn't delete my Facebook yet, but I was in the process of blocking him from my Facebook, blocking him from everything. But that wasn't enough. He made multiple accounts to try to talk to me. He found ways to talk to me through other people. Um, and he started following me. Now, at this point, after college, because we were very close to the ending of college, I, like a couple months later, end up starting to date another guy. And my ex is full blown blasts me on Facebook, calls me all these names, calls out the guy that I'm dating at this point, and just fully still in chaos with this situation, to the point where every time I would go home because they were in both counties. So my home was in one county, my school was in the other county. So it's going between two counties all the time. And this is important is because he started to stalk me in both of the counties. He found friends on one county that could keep him in the loop of what I was doing, and he found friends on the other side. Um, and unfortunately, when it comes to someone that is a manipulator, they're good at manipulating. So a lot of these friends did not realize the gravity of him at that time. Um, and so he would, he had people that, I mean, the reason that the bar situation even happened, where he was right behind me, was because he had one of his people that I would call an informant at the time tell him where I was. Um, and they did. And then, he showed up. And that happened a lot. I was trying to go to church, he'd show up at that church. I was trying to work. Even though we were working at the same place, he'd constantly be trying to come into the area that I was in. And I felt uncomfortable. And of course, I stopped eating even more. I didn't notice that it was affecting me. at this point. And later, I was like in my early 20s at like 89 to 90 pounds with being 5'8", which not good, not a good situation. Um, and I did try to get a restraining order, and this I'm gonna have to look up because at the time I really didn't know my rights. I wasn't doing the paralegal work. I wasn't doing anything with the law. I mean, I did mock trial and stuff, but I just wasn't as into it as I am now. But I remember, and maybe it was because the cop just didn't want to deal with it, but he basically told me there was nothing I could do about it. I would have to have proof, at least in one county, because we're between the two, that he was doing it, and he'd have to send me some kind of message that threatened me, which I never understood how that could be the only cause for a restraining order, because to me, stalking is a threat to your life. Maybe they didn't say to you, "Oh, I'm gonna hurt you," or "I want to, kill you," or whatever terminology that they expected him to say. But the fact that you're making me feel uncomfortable, the fact that you're scaring me by being everywhere that you should not be when I've asked you multiple times to leave me alone and you're still there, like, how is that not a threat? Because it was threatening. It I remember a time that I was super excited. My father and brother were gonna drop me off at my current boyfriend's house. I was gonna hang out with him. We're gonna have a good time. I needed to stop and get some stuff at the store, and my ex don't even know how this like I don't even know if he was following us, how he even knew, but he ends up driving by us, rolls down his window, and points at me, and then just speeds away. And I remember feeling like I was going to vomit instantly. And I just remember saying, "We need to leave now. We need to leave. We need to go. We need to go." And so, with all of these things, like month after month, he'd be stalking me. Even when I was dating, this new guy, it didn't matter. And it didn't matter on what county line we were on. And so it started to become scarier and scarier where I just didn't eat. I was like, I mean, I'd eat, but not enough. And um, around the time that Andrew had met me and Jeremy had met me, because I met Jeremy through Andrew, chaos was it was at a high. I mean, at that point in time, that current boyfriend ended up becoming an ex because he cheated on me multiple times to the point where he actually gave me chlamydia. And I had to take a pill for that. I'm not proud of that at all. I honestly felt probably the dirtiest I could ever feel. It's embarrassing saying out loud, but at the same time, now as looking back on it, I did not do anything to deserve that. And I didn't do anything wrong, but at the time I felt disgusting. I felt horrible. I stopped kind of communicating to people. Um, I like just, I was just in a place of lost. I didn't know. I didn't care about dating or anything. And when I met Jeremy, I truly wasn't looking for anything. I had no intentions. I just, at this point in life, was like, whatever. If we become friends, cool. If we don't become friends, cool. Like, I just wasn't in the best place of my life. And I had met Jeremy prior in life, actually, when I was like 15, but that's for another episode. But chaos was brewing, and I was living back on that one county by home, except this time I was in an apartment with a friend. I was getting to know Jeremy, but it really took a lot of time on for both of us because we both were in not so great really well, not to the extent his relationship wasn't to the extent of that, but, like, we both were coming out of relationships at this point. At least he had, like, a year on his, I had a couple months on mine, and I remember when we hung out for the first time, I told him everything, like, instantly, word vomit, "This is me," and honestly, I feel like he should have ran at that point because it was a lot. That's a lot to take in. I have a stalker, my other ex gives me this, and I'm yeah, I don't know what to do. I'm not eating properly like I should. I'm not in the best place. But what I love about Jeremy is that he's always let me be myself. And I always give the analogy that he doesn't walk behind me, he doesn't walk ahead of me. He has always walked with me, next to me in support. And I absolutely love that about him. But what he didn't know is that more chaos is going to occur because while all this is happening, I finally got off this horse pill that you have to take to get rid of, that thing. Um, Unfortunately, I ended up catching my father cheating on my mom with my friend. And that was that was a blow. I mean, yeah, that was a blow. And I don't know. I can't say that this situation from all parties was handled well because I told some people that I probably shouldn't have told. I should have maybe I don't know what I should have done. I mean, what do you do in a situation like that? I don't think that there is a book on what you should or shouldn't do, but I just yeah, I mean, it was a lot and unfortunately, the people that I wanted to talk to about it, which usually would be my friends, it'd be my family, my parents, I couldn't tell them about it. Um, and when it came to my friends, there were two friends in particular that, um, besides Jeremy, that were in my life that knew about this, that were helping me through it. And I really want to say to you guys, you know who you are. I appreciate that. I really needed you at that time. Um, Even when I am not great at, sharing with other people. But now look at me, I'm on the podcast, I guess. But I really appreciate all of you, including Jeremy, for being there for me during that time because it was chaotic. Now, mind you, years have gone by, so my relationship with my father has been a lot better from that point. Um, but at that time, yeah, it was conflicting, like when you have a relationship with people and they that friend was very close friend of mine. Her family was very close with me. Obviously my father's my dad. Like the hardest part is feeling love but hatred towards the actions that occurred for both. It's not like I was saying for one or the other. It sucked from both of them. It sucked. And I just remember that like I didn't know what to do with the information, and I didn't feel like it was my place to tell my mom at the time. I don't think it's really any place at the time, but I just didn't know what to do with it, and so it ate at me, and I basically told that friend as time went on that, I love you, but at the same time, I hate you. Hate the actions. I hate that you did this to me. And I said the same to my dad. It's not like it was one got the they both equally got this feeling. But at the same time, I had to tell my friend, basically like, hey, we can't be in each other's lives because part of me, the empathetic side of me, wants to love you and wants to see you get better and wants to find a way for you to figure out whatever that hurt was that led you to do something like that. Get it? get that help that you need. But the other part of me is like, I hope you freaking fall and crash on the feet and feel the pain that I felt. So these two emotions were conflicting, and I don't actually feel that way, I have to say, when it comes to making someone else feel revenge, because the pain that I felt, I don't want anybody to feel that way. It hurts. It's a lot of emotion at once that you don't know what to do with. So, but at the same time, it's like I can't be friends with this person, you know? Obviously it's different with my dad because he's my dad. And we had a lot of conversations about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, like we had a lot of conversations, a lot of family conversations. And we've had like our relationship is definitely in a way better place than it was then. But at that time, I was just like, go, like, get out of my face. I don't want to see any of you. Um, but like I said, it's different times. With the friend though, I had to like it had to be done. Like there's nothing that I could do about that friendship. Unfortunately, it created a I don't want to say like her family created a wedge. There was this like wedge that was built on its own. Um, Not that anybody tried to. It's just hard when it's like I said, it's conflicting feelings. You love them, but you hate the actions. Um, but anyway, uh, time. I read this quote the other day that says healing isn't linear, and that's so true because like this was probably I want to say 8 years ago, about 8 years ago that this all happened with all the chaos with the stalking and everything. And in the midst of that, I haven't even brought up the fact that I've had endometriosis during this time too, you know what I mean? So a lot of stuff was like going down at the same time, which I think that's why I can't just do this in one episode. It's going to have to be a couple. But with this episode in particular of being unfiltered, um, yeah, I read this quote the other day of healing isn't linear, and it's true. There were times that I felt like things were all right and okay, I'm getting to a place where I'm feeling better. And then there are times that I was like, oh, I I don't feel good. I don't like this. I don't yeah. I just I wanted to run away. And what I love about Jeremy is that during all of this, he did not like be like, okay, bye. He stayed with me, and he let because he actually lived 3 hours away but would visit all the time. He let his apartment 3 hours away be my solitude. And I'm so grateful for that because I needed that. Because what I wanted to do was run. Um and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of family members and friends that I know would have been there for me in a heartbeat. But at that time, I don't know why, I just didn't like to share or tell anybody anything. And the only reason why I'm sharing on this platform is because I want to help other people that feel alone, that are hurting, that struggle with anxiety, all of the above, because we need a community. We need help. We need love and support, you know? And that's why the Brie Pod happened, you know? And what's beautiful about the Brie Pod is that now, even though things on all ends, with like my ex stopped stalking me, my other ex, we just kind of like called a truce there. My father and I worked things out to where it can be we can communicate and kind of get to back to the relationship. But and then having to let go of the friend all with all of these things, and then creating the Brie Pod with because all of this is created off of a pregnancy test that was negative. That's what all this came from, the emotions of that. Um, I've learned from by other people sharing their stories that I needed to bring back fitness into my life because I was neglecting my body physically. And then I needed to bring one of my friends was telling me about a counselor, and I don't know why, but I was trying to get help for my friend at the time when we were still friends. And I was trying to get help for myself too and for my dad. And I went to like the church. I went to certain family members. I went to all these things, but nothing really like things helped all as time progressed, but I didn't realize how much like stuff I really needed to, I guess, talk about. So now that I've been seeing my therapist, I've realized that a lot of these things the tools that she's been sharing have been so important for my growth, especially important with like dealing with the stuff that's current, which is currently it's the endo and the infertility, and like feeling these emotions and getting and learning about them and why they are there and where they came from. And I'm very grateful for Priscilla for giving me that contact for my counselor because without that, I wouldn't be, I guess, finding different parts of me that needed some help. And the whole thing about the Brie Pod is it is okay to not be okay. And when it comes to mental health and anxiety, it is an everyday battle. It's not like it goes away. It's an everyday thing. And I want to stress that because I read a lot of quotes everywhere and I try to share, quotes to give awareness and stuff. When it comes to depression and mental health and drug use and alcohol use and all of these things, it is still a battle for that person every single day. For people that are into drugs and alcohol, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner. I really feel like I should have said that in a better way, but the point is that people that struggle with those things, it's an everyday battle to be sober, to stay sober. It's an everyday struggle for people with mental health to stay here with us. And the Brie Pod, I wanted to build so that I could hopefully have people share stories and bring a community that says, hey, I know you feel like you're, messed up and you feel like you've gone through some, well, not feel like you have gone through some stuff, but this community is here for you. We have your back. We love you. We care for you. We want you to stay with us. We want you to know that you are supported fully. And so, sorry to go on this tangent, but it's it's so crazy how it was built to help other people, and so many people have reached out from the stories that have been shared, not just with the raw stuff, but even with businesses that we were talking about, health, relationships, all the things that the Brie Pod's about. It's just been an outpour of love and support, and it's helped me, try to better myself. I mean, there are things that are in my past that need to be resolved. I mean, there's a lot of upset from the stalking and, getting cheated on, like all these things that I'm working on. And I thought that I could just handle it by myself. And I think it's very strong and important for people to know that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay. I know that it's taboo for us to say stuff like that, but if if you're struggling and you need help, please reach out. Please get the help that you need. It is not does not make you a bad person. It doesn't make you less than or any of the things that our society says because we can't talk about it, you know? Um, and so this is only a part of my story. But I share this with you with full vulnerability because I want you to know that you are not alone. You are loved, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. So, with that being said, because I don't want to make this extended too far, um, I, with that being said, uh, until next time on the Brie Pod. Bye.